You are listening to the Getting Lucky Mixed Martial Arts Podcast. I'm your host, Lucky Robert Curtis. We're going to be reviewing UFC 156 with Mitchell Stucky.
Hello, hello.
Hello. Same intro as part one. We don't change it up here. If it works, we're going to ride it till it dies. Like I said in part one, in the background, my asshole neighbors are working this jackhammer. And I don't mean in a masturbatory fashion. I mean a literal jackhammer. Across the street, right outside of Lucky Rob headquarters. They've been doing it all week, from 7 a.m. all the way to 7 p.m. So you'll be hearing it in the background. There's absolutely nothing I can do short of picking up a rifle and going libertarian on their asses. First fight of the pay-per-view. Ian McCall versus Joseph Benavidez. I think we called this fight exactly. Ian McCall doesn't have an extra gear, doesn't have the polish to his game, and it's probably because his training, his preparation, his career up to this point has been more about mustaches, smiling, having cool nicknames, and less about crushing it in practice. What do you think?
Yeah, Team Oyama is really not getting him ready for the big leagues. As you mentioned before, maybe the drug addictions that he had, you'd think he'd overcome those and really want to push himself further than he should be, especially after possibly overdosing previously. You'd think that would put him in the next level, getting a second, lease on life. But he doesn't look like he can compete with these guys. I thought he beat Demetrius Johnson hands down, and to come back from those two, I guess a draw and a loss, and then lose again to Benavidez convincingly, that says something.
Yeah. He thought he won this fight. And I thought he was crazy, because after the fight he put his hands up, this decision's announced, he dropped to the ground like, oh my God!
Uh-huh.
But I think what he thinks, he won round two. He got the takedown and put some ground and pound in, which I thought was really close, because I thought whenever they were standing, he was losing. But I think he thinks he won round one because he cut Benavidez right on the hairline.
With his
Joe
head.
Rogan called it a headbutt, but when it happened, Ian McCall smiled at Benavidez and pointed at his elbow.
Mm.
So whether or not that was actually an elbow, I think he thinks that one moment where he cut Benavidez won him round one and thus won him the fight. But he looked terrible on the feet.
I didn't think... I, for once, fully agreed with the judges. I didn't think he won the fight at all. And like you, I was shocked when he dropped to his knees. Like, you're the only guy in the arena. Maybe you and your training partners from the wonderful Team Oyama think you won. So, I don't know. I was unimpressed.
We see these inflated, bloated fight expectations of who won coming up with Rashad Evans and Little Nog. Now, here's what I was noticing straight away. And if I'm noticing this, then his trainers have to have noticed it. Every time Ian McCall threw a low kick, he dropped his hands. Mm-hmm. And that's when he was getting countered left and right.
Yeah, Benavidez picked up on that quickly.
Yeah, every time he threw that back leg low kick, he dropped his right hand. He was eating straights and overhands on that side the entire fight.
No, give him credit. Give him credit for being able to absorb those shots from a Hulk like Benavidez is at that weight.
Yeah, those flyweights, man, they are packing power.
He's short, but he's big for that weight class.
Benavidez is so short, yet kind of muscled, but his head, he looks like a bobblehead doll. Look at him next time he fights. His head is really, like he's got a normal-sized head, but like a Legolas-sized body.
He does look a little weird, I guess, at that, but he is he looks like he's supposed to be a midget. But he is very compact in that body. I always did think it was weird back in the WEC and things like that when he would fight at featherweight and bantamweight. I thought that was weird, seeing him compete against guys of that size. Did you ever, little guy in those shorts running around fighting a Miguel Torres, a guy that looks like he's 6'7"?
Yeah, you're like, Benavidez, shouldn't you be back in the chocolate factory? What are you doing here? The other thing I want to say about McCall is he should have been going for his takedowns the entire fight, because that's really his only elite skill. When they would get together and exchange, McCall was sort of throwing these like short hook flurries, when he was throwing them with his elbows sort of at his ribs, you know what I mean? And there was no movement on him, just sort of this like, it's kind of hard. It's like almost like you're doing like a fat boy shuffle, you know? And Benavidez was moving. He was throwing, straights, overhands. He was jabbing a bit. McCall, terrible.
McCall reminded me in that scenario of Clay Guida. When Clay Guida finally advances to strike, it looked like he was getting taken apart. Basically, it wasn't where he should be.
I'm not going to go that far. I wouldn't even call Jacob Volkman Clay Guida. I mean, Clay Guida looks like he's having an aneurysm inside an octagon. Another guy's watching.
I meant he looked that inept when he finally does go into strike. He was getting beaten that bad, I think, by Benavidez.
Yeah, and I have a terrible, painful admission. The most ineffectual striker on the card is coming up next.
I'm gonna agree. But
Ian McCall, I thought he looked great against Demetrius Johnson in the draw. I don't think he won, but I think he earned a draw in another round. And ever since that fight, he has not looked anywhere close to the same fighter.
No, and that brings me to this. Where do you think the UFC? What do you think the UFC can do with him? He in his time in the UFC, gatekeeper. You think they keep him in?
Oh yeah, he's a gatekeeper. I mean, because he'll destroy. I think he'll beat guys that aren't ready. But against elite guys, I think Dodson would beat him.
Including the WEC, his UFC combined with WEC record is 1-4-1. Yeah, not good. And the one, a loss to Demetrius Johnson, a draw to Demetrius Johnson, a loss to Dominic Cruz. These aren't things to scoff at, but when you get to the big show from Tachi Palace, you better be winning something.
And it was not close, this fight with Benavidez.
No.
He may have thought it was, but it wasn't.
Yeah, I don't understand. I thought what was interesting though was hearing where he got his nickname from, Uncle Creepy.
I was hoping for something. I was hoping for like some sort of online chat room or something, but the story that he gave wasn't very exciting.
No, when you're coming from a guy who had a bit of personal issues like that, you'd think it would be from something like that. But
couldn't it have been one of your OxyContin dealers that gave you that? No, it came from your nephew. Okay. Instantly, that nickname is not as cool. Welterweights, John Fitch versus Demian Maia. This was sadly the most one-sided fight of the whole night.
Yeah, the one time in my life that I have rooted for John Fitch. I feel like a dummy saying John Fitch would win by stoppage. One time I've ever rooted for him, he got absolutely destroyed.
The stoppage part is pretty embarrassing. I didn't even go that far. I thought if John Fitch could wall and stall Maia and drain him, that's how he would win. But Maia, the best comparison I can say for what Maia did to Fitch was he did a Dong-Hyun Kim on him. He stun-gunned him. Mm-hmm. He rode him the entire fight. And by the end of the fight, John Fitch looked absolutely exhausted. And yes, Demian Maia, John Fitch.
John Fitch. And this is what bothered me, and Joe Rogan picked up on it. He threw his hands up after, a late third-round takedown, like in disgust. Like, come on, John Fitch, this is what you do to everybody. This is how it feels.
Maybe he was disgusted with himself. After the fight, he apologized for coming out flat.
I don't think it's that who expected Demian Maia?
I don't know. But, I mean, remember when he fought BJ Penn and BJ Penn came out with a takedown right away and he took him down and John Fitch... I'm kind of wondering if John Fitch actually has good takedown defense, because normally guys don't try to take him down because they're like, oh shit, if I go down with him, then we're gonna get into these little cardio wars that he's really good at. But the last few times I've really looked for it, people that have tried to take him down, I don't see
BJ Penn, Demian
I don't
Maia.
see John Fitch's sprawl being that great, because Demian Maia isn't super fast.
No, I think it caught him off guard.
But he was doing it the whole fight.
Right.
By the time he got a single or a double, that's when John Fitch started sprawling. But until then, it's almost like his feet were in cement. Yeah.
You mentioned this while we were watching the fights. You mentioned that you thought maybe John Fitch is past his prime. That was a gut check moment. Do you still think that? Have you had time to reflect?
Well, he pulled a draw with BJ Penn, and he shouldn't have. BJ Penn is not meant to fight welterweights. BJ Penn has no cardio. BJ Penn is small. He is tailor-made for John Fitch. He got absolutely knocked out, destroyed by Hendricks. And then with this fight John Fitch could go back to the drawing board, and he could go back and have a new camp and prepare things, but I don't think it would make a lick of difference. Because
Really?
Listen, when you take grapplers, Joe Rogan is a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Demian Maia is a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. But when you really think about it and put it in terms of American sports, Joe Rogan is like a high school basketball player in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He's a high school level basketball player. He's a guy that if you and I were to play, he could score on us at will. Demian Maia is an NBA All-Star.
Mm-hmm.
Demian Maia is the league MVP of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So if you were to put Demian Maia versus Joe Rogan, he would tap Joe Rogan within 2 minutes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, when you take that level of grappler versus a guy that was a walk-on at Purdue, I think you saw really clearly that when Demian Maia uses his jiu-jitsu, he is freakishly good.
I think at the same point, though, you got to give credit to Fitch, who was able to defend against Demian Maia on his back for a majority of the fight. That says something, and I don't think John was as gassed as maybe you do.
Maybe it was just a depression or a sadness after getting dominated.
He'd just been like, wow, this is what everybody feels like after they fight me. But I think he could still go a few rounds, but it wouldn't make it. They could have fought 10 rounds, and Maia would have done the same thing.
Maia's cardio looked great.
Did Maia even throw a strike? Did he land a strike?
I'm sure he did some ground and pound. Yeah, he threw some punches to try to get that rear naked.
Oh, yeah, near the end he did try to loosen him up. But I think they showed a statistic at some point, maybe it was in the second round, it was like John Fitch, 44 strikes landed, Demian Maia, 0.
Well, Fitch was throwing those punches over his shoulder, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like
trying to figure something out, yeah.
This should be like a third of a punch. When John Fitch came out, and I believe it was Camarillo, said, all that stuff, the kicks, everything, you got to go crazy. At that point, you know it's over because John Fitch does not have good stand-up. And that's why I'm thinking John Fitch might be past his prime. Because if he is getting dominated on the ground, which has been his strength, if he's getting out-cardioed, which was his elite weapon, he does not have a stand-up game at all.
No.
When he threw those kicks, it looked like something you would see on a backyard wrestling tape.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. I finally root for the guy, and then he gets beaten worse than I aside from the Johnny Hendricks loss, beaten worse than I've ever seen him be beaten. What would you prefer for your? I mean, he's probably your favorite fighter, correct?
Who?
John Fitch.
No.
One of your favorites.
I'm always going to go with Oklahoma State guys.
Okay. Well, what would you prefer to watch happen to him? Would you prefer immediate KO or what happened Saturday night?
With guys that I like, I wouldn't want to see him KO'd like that.
You wouldn't want to see him KO'd like that?
No, because then I start to think, well, that just took 2 years off his career.
Yeah, I think
did he just get Vanderlei Silva'd or by Crow Cup? That's what I'm worried about.
I think this kind of a loss really puts you more in awe than a immediate flash KO does. Unless it does begin to be a trend, then it's scary.
Demian Maia is a wizard. He is a genius at grappling. If this were a wrestling match, it would have been a tech fall. Do you watch wrestling at all? Do you know what that means?
No.
When a fighter, there's point scoring. You get a takedown, it's 2 points. You get an escape, it's 1 point. And there's other sort of things you can get, like having back time, riding time. When you get an advantage of 15 points, which means you took a guy down. If you take the guy down, I think it would have to be like with back time and everything. You'd have to take him down like 6 or 7 times, and then let him up and just keep taking the guy down. Literally, because you can do it at will. If you get an advantage of 15 points, they stop the match and say you win. Tech fall. Because you're so dominant. Mm-hmm. They would have. This fight would have been tech fall after 5 minutes, because he had the back I have not seen any. He had the back for like 13 minutes of this fight. It was insane. Props to John Fitch for not getting subbed, but Jesus Christ, he had back mount for like 12, 13 minutes. I've never seen anything like it.
That's what really surprised me when it came to the judges. 30-27.
That's bullshit.
No, I thought 10-8 at the very least for maybe all 3 rounds.
Yeah, there should have at least been 10-8. Because that was, if you want to take octagon control, positional dominance, that's as dominant as you get.
It was so one-sided, and sure he didn't do any damage really, but it's so one-sided.
Yeah, there was absolutely no doubt that Maia was in another class. Welterweight suddenly looks super, super, super exciting. After Diaz, GSP's looking at Hendricks. Maia is now legit. Like, can GSP keep Maia from taking him down? I think he can, but if it goes to the ground, I'm super excited to see what happens.
I wanted to say this about Maia, since you bring up the fact that he is a welterweight now. Clearly, Maia's had, at this point, 3 welterweight fights. I just keep remembering him as a middleweight. When he was in there against John Fitch, I know John Fitch is a welterweight. I know Maia's a middleweight. And I kept thinking in my brain, this is, a guy a weight class above fighting John Fitch. Maia is huge. Huge at welterweight.
Well, they're both 6 foot, but Fitch is really skinny. Like, he's got turkey legs all the way, But Maia actually has some definition. He's actually got a new haircut. He's shaving the sides of his head, so he's got sort of that weird combination redneck military thing with hair on top and really, really short, rough cut on the side. That might be the Brazilian magical haircut for him.
There is one of those, you think?
I think there is. Vitor Belfort, Ronaldo. This was supposed to be the night of Beat Brazil. It was supposed to be.
That's what we said.
That's what we said. I thought Fitch would decision Maia, and I literally would have bet my house and my children on the next fight.
Which I can't wait to talk about.
Alistair Overeem got embarrassed by Antonio Silva. This will be a when they redo the intro package into the UFC, the Gladiator, and now they're building the arena. This has to be in there.
It has to be the first thing.
Well, it's right there with Dan Henderson knocking out Bisping. It was beautiful. I thought that Antonio Silva was scared for the first 2 rounds because he was not throwing and he was just sitting there with his hands up.
And I thought when he did throw, when he did finally give in to his instincts and throw a combination, Alistair Overeem moved. He was way quicker. So it looked embarrassing for Bigfoot.
But in the post-fight press conference, Antonio Silva actually gave an insight into his strategy. He said that his corner and his camp know that Alistair's got no cardio. And so he was intentionally waiting for the 3rd round. He said he didn't do anything trying to get Alistair to throw. And when Alistair took him down in the 2nd round, Silva said he was whispering to Alistair, "Come on, hit me. Are you scared? Come on, hit me." Trying to get Alistair to do ground and pound. And obviously Silva on the ground is better than Alistair.
Can a guy with that weird of a voice whisper?
Come on, hit me. So what I thought was tentativeness or timidity was actually game plan.
Yeah, I mean, he can say that all he wants, and that it very well could be true.
The way he started round 3, I believe it.
Yeah, he did come out with...
He did not give a fuck. I mean, it's not like I have to do this. He's like, okay, now I'm going to start throwing leather, and damn it.
Did you guys see the knockout? Oh my god, it was awesome. It was so good.
Alistair, I have to say this. Alistair looked noticeably smaller.
He did. And not only smaller, just not shredded in any way.
I mean, like, before he looked so bulky. He looked so... It's like he was carrying so much water in his delts and lats and triceps and traps. But now he looked a lot closer to Pride Alistair. Lots closer. I'm sure he still had to cut down a little bit to get to 265, But when he fought Lesnar, I bet he had to cut 30 pounds to get down.
I think if you go back and you look at Brock Lesnar in the WWE, pictures of Brock Lesnar in the WWE,
Yeah.
and then you look at pictures of Brock Lesnar in the UFC, that's what it was like for Alistair Overeem. Brock Lesnar in the WWE looked fake. And then he moved over, to the UFC, and he looked like a real person, just gigantic.
Or take a look at Vitor, early UFC to Vitor before the last fight. Not the Bisping fight, but in the fight versus Anderson. Look at the body difference there. That's the difference between old Alistair and this Alistair. He's been doing blood tests for a year. So I have a very strong feeling he was probably clean this whole year. And look at how much mass he's lost. To me, it was just obvious.
What I'd like to see is we've seen all those things on the internet, the timeline of Alistair Overeem's career going from a skinny light heavyweight to the biggest man to step foot. I'd like to see him revert and the timeline continue and come full circle and go back to skinny light heavyweight. And I think that's what you'll see if he stays off the juice.
So you're saying if he stays off the juice, like in 2 years,
the horse meat, not the
Cody
juice.
McKenzie.
Yes, yes, he'll be the Dutch Cody McKenzie. He'll come up with a Dutch Kensington.
And then he can sell his rights and have a great story. That would make a great movie. Thinner by Stephen King, starring Alistair Overeem.
No, I think if you're familiar with American baseball, the MLB, Jose Canseco came out and outed everybody on steroids. Alistair Overeem is going to write his own little book, but I think it'll really just be about him. Maybe, let's not forget, Bigfoot did get popped too.
Yeah, this is not a battle of good versus evil.
But holy shit, did you see Alistair Overeem get knocked out? Wasn't it awesome?
Overeem is the cockiest dumbass I think I've ever seen. He smirked the first 2 rounds. I honestly think even with Silva's intention of letting Alistair gas himself out, I still think Alistair could have taken him out had he just decided, I'm finishing this, a la Brett Rogers.
Yeah, I can't take anything away from Alistair. I honestly fully believe if he wanted to pull the trigger in the first 2 rounds, he could have. But at the same time, if you're fighting a guy who is admittedly timid, he's telling you, my game plan was to not do anything, and you can't finish him. Was Overeem waiting for the 3rd round? I mean, really, yeah. As soon as it went to the 3rd round, I started to really get suspicious. I'm like, what is Alistair doing? He does not have a gas tank. No, yeah, that's what I didn't understand that. But at the same time, maybe he was doing all that. I'm going to finish you. I'm going to effing destroy. Dude, then do it. If you're going to tell me that you're going to fucking destroy the guy, then fucking destroy the guy. Do it. In round 2, I think Overeem started to get in love with he started to desire the love that Anderson Silva gets, because he put his hands down, and he didn't look as comfortable as Silva when he did it, but he put his hands down and was trying to counter from the hips like Silva does, duck and dive, and I think he thinks he's the greatest thing ever invented in mixed martial arts. No, you can't do that unless you're Anderson. He can't, and he'd be stupid to try in heavyweight, because any one of these guys that lands on you could knock you out. He doesn't have Mark Hunt's chin. He has been KO'd by much, much smaller guys. Alistair Overeem, after he lost on Twitter, he wrote this, "Arg." I'm like, that's it? Not like, I'm really sorry, I was a complete moron and I just pissed away my title shot? Maybe I'm turning into my brother. Arg. Maybe Arg is Dutch for, yeah, I fucked up. Yeah, when you've been knocked out by light heavyweights, when you've been knocked out by Lil Nog or Shogun, and now you're fighting the heaviest of the heavyweights, don't play around with your chin. Yeah. Wasn't he training with the Black Zillions, Overeem? Yep. That makes it even better. Did you see him get knocked out? There was a point when Antonio Silva landed that really first clean uppercut, and Alistair's like flailing around, getting kind of wobbling, and he gets hit with that uppercut, and then he just stops and looks off into space like, I just thought of something. And then he's got that moment like, I left my oven on. And then bam, bam, bam. Again, I think a late stoppage by Herb Dean. You probably didn't. I thought it was a late stoppage, but I enjoyed every second of it. But I too appreciate that. When I was watching it, and if you go back and look at the GIF or GIF, if you want to be stupid about it, you can see there's a point where Bigfoot hits him, and he hits him in such a way that Overeem's, dumb, dead face is forced to face, look him straight in the eyes.
That's
and
exactly the moment I was talking about.
Right. Forces him to look straight in the eye. That was awesome for me. But I think the next fight that I want to see Overeem fight, since he's, like you said, pissed away his title shot, I'd like to see him in there with Nandor. I want to see a stand-up battle between those two, because I guarantee Nandor's coming to fight if it's a stand-up war.
If Nandor's allowed to bring in his battle axe, then yeah, I agree. Most likely, it'll be Alistair JDS.
I'd like to see that because, with the way that this one went, JDS very well could destroy him.
Yeah.
But if you look at the top 10, top 15 UFC heavyweights, I wouldn't be upset at a Alistair Roy Nelson, an Alistair Josh Barnett. I don't want to see him against Stefan Struve, because Stefan Struve will get dominated. But
can we put Alistair versus Czech Congo? Just because I really don't like Czech Congo.
How about Daniel Cormier versus Alistair?
No, Daniel Cormier's got work to do at light heavyweight. And speaking of light heavyweight...
Ooh!
I'm starting to feel like I'm getting good at this. Rashad Evans hand-trapped his way to a loss against Little Nog. Dana White, after this fight, said this is the worst he's ever seen Rashad. And I kind of have to agree.
I'm going to fully agree. Isn't this another Black Zillion?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Bigfoot, after his fight, said that he was also a Black Zillion, but he left when Alistair came there. He said the Black Zillions are just professionals that show up, they train, and they leave. Where all of the camps he's a part of, American Top Team and Black House, he said they're families. So maybe that's part of it. Maybe they don't really work as hard with each other because they don't give a shit.
Right. That's the vibe I've always gotten from them, and that's why you see them lose as frequently as you do. It doesn't seem like they're in it. They've got a big head, I think, and that's funny that they have a big head and Bigfoot left, but it's like they have a big head.
Rashad Evans respected Little Nog's boxing way too much.
Far too. And Rashad's got the kind of speed where he doesn't need to respect really anybody's boxing. He can get in there and do work and then get out.
He's fallen prey to Josh Koscheck syndrome. He could have wrestled Antonio the entire fight. If you have to, go for 15 takedowns. If you can land 5 of those, you win. Mm-hmm. But how many times did he shoot? Twice? 3 times?
Yeah, it was very rare. But you know what? I got to give him credit for that. I'm glad that he's gone, that he didn't do that.
Well, would you rather see him hand-checking for 15 minutes?
No, because when he lets it go, I mean, he's dangerous. I don't know what he was waiting for. It wasn't a 5-round fight. He's got to know he's a veteran. He's been a champion. He's got to know the clock's not working for him when all he's doing is playing patty cake. I've seen that in other fights, not necessarily from him, and it's always made me wonder what are they waiting for? Why are they slapping hands? I
don't know why he does that. He did that with John Jones and paid for it. That hand fighting, hand trapping, and Jones would just. They'd sort of lock up hands, or Rashad would start trying to tap that lead hand away. Not like he was trying to tap it and then, do the double jab like what Dan Hardy did. Mm-hmm. The double, what was it, a hook, I think, a left hook. He is just tapping it for no reason. And then John Jones came over the top a couple times. Antonio Nogueira is slow. Little Nog is slow. And Rashad should have used his speed, his footwork, and his wrestling. And that's what I thought he was going to do, to be the second best light heavyweight, to be the most compelling challenge for Anderson had he won the fight. But instead, he just didn't do anything.
Nothing.
This is what was disappointing about this card, is you had guys coming out that are good fighters, that have great records, like Eve Edwards or John Fitch and now Rashad Evans, and just didn't do anything. Mm-hmm. Ugh. God, that was a terrible fight.
No, I mean, I was sickened by it. I think if you look at Dana White's Twitter, he said he had it 2-0 for Lil Nog, and the reason.
And that was at the end of the fight, 2 rounds
right.
to none.
And he said, it was at the end. He said he had 2 rounds to none because one of the rounds was just shit. It was the worst, round of fighting, and it really underperformed. But you know what? It could underperform, and it didn't bother me at all, because did you see the knockout before that? It was awesome!
One of our buddies, Michelle, said that after the event, Alistair Overeem was seen wandering the streets of Las Vegas asking when UFC 156 was going to start.
That was good.
Yeah. I don't want to talk about Rashad Evans again for the rest of the night. The guy has no chin. There, I said it.
Ooh! No, I want to discredit you on that. To his credit, he did take some shots from a powerful left hand of Lil Nog, but he doesn't have as much of a chin as you would hope a fighter would.
Well, he's definitely one of the Wizard of Oz characters. He's definitely missing something. I just can't decide if it's a brain or a heart.
You can never tell. He seems to be missing one or the other every time he steps in the cage. He's got to get away from the Black Zillions.
I wonder if the Black Zillions actually make you dumber.
Right, because if you look at their roster, first of all, Dion Starring fights for them, okay? Dion Starring, the guy that just got destroyed by Daniel Cormier.
Crazy eyes.
Right, look at their roster. Melvin Gillard looks hilarious when he's on the ground.
He wasn't dumber when he got into the Black Zillions. He was dumberer.
You have, what do we have? Miguel Torres, career on the downturn. Matt Mitrione. Rumble Johnson can never make weight. Fab Mello.
Abel Trujillo's in there.
The guy that I will give them credit for, a decent fighter they have, is Eddie Alvarez. And also Alistair Overeem. He looks
Eddie Alvarez isn't going to win any fights anytime soon. No, he just got his ass kicked in court.
Right. They do have this is a name I'd prefer you to say, but Bahadurzada?
Bahadurzada?
Yeah.
I made that up. I don't know if that's right.
I enjoy that guy fighting. But anyway, enough about the Black Zillions. That was just a shit fight, and I was very upset with it.
Super fight! Jose Aldo, featherweight, versus Frankie. That's how I want to. Whenever I talk like Frankie, I want to try to do like a bad East Coast, New York, New Jersey accent. Yeah, Frankie. Forget about it.
You do a German accent much better.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah? I'll do the rest of the show now. So Aldo came in and he was trying to kill Frankie. When you have a super fight, Frankie. When you have a super fight, you can't expect it to be like a prelim.
No.
Very rarely do you have an Edgar Gray Maynard fight where both guys get dropped. It's crazy. Normally when you have a super fight, it's highly technical and very nuanced. Mm-hmm. And it's little things that make all the difference in the world. And that's what this fight was. Aldo, round 1 and 2, had just enough speed to get off before Frankie could do anything. And just when he tired a fraction and lost a little bit of zip on those punches, that's when Frankie could counter. And that was the fight.
Yeah. This is and a lot of people are giving the fight, a lot of, pros were giving the fight to Frankie. And that baffles me. Like, I wasn't blown away by the judges calling it 49-46. I mean, it didn't completely, I wouldn't go that far. I would say it was definitely 48, I guess 48-47. But I don't know. I think Frankie took too long to figure it out. We were talking about pre-fight. We were saying Aldo would take a while to figure it out. It unfolded the other way around, and Edgar didn't get to implement his game plan until too late.
Well, you're right. We did think that Aldo would take a while to figure out Edgar's style, which is that pity pop, jitterbug, shoulder shake in and out. What I didn't realize was how much faster Aldo was. Mm-hmm. With the kicks, with the hands, everything, he was just so much faster.
How could you check one of those kicks? You can't. Those kicks are so fast.
And dude, I'm convinced if I was hit with one of those kicks, I would quit fighting. Not only would I lose via submission leg kick, the first ever, by one kick, I would quit fighting because I don't know if I'd be able to walk again. He freaking kicks hard.
Mm-hmm. It's disgusting, but Edgar, and, it didn't phase Edgar. You've got to give it to Edgar, but he's a fighter without a weight class. Frankie Edgar is.
Yeah.
He doesn't have the speed to keep up in the lower weight classes. The speed was, like we said before, was his weapon in light weight, which apparently Dana White is all of a sudden going to tell Frankie Edgar he's not allowed to come back to. Who does Dana White think he is?
Well, he's Dana White.
Right, that's correct. He's, point.
I think I'd like to see Frankie fight another featherweight not named Jose Aldo. Because I think Jose Aldo, he's the third best fighter on the planet, pound for pound, in my opinion.
Right.
And the margin between him and Jones is razor thin. But Jones hasn't fought anyone like Edgar, in my opinion.
I would agree with you that I think that when you have a fighter that's going to change weight classes in the way that he did, or BJ Penn, people that are going to go down or go up, I don't think it should be an immediate title shot, because if you lose, which Frankie Edgar did, it's really a where do I go from here?
Yeah.
I think that you should have to fight somebody before you get the chance, because otherwise you're screwing yourself in the event that you lose.
What if he drops down to 135? He wrestled in college at 133 and gets a shot versus Renan Barão. He can do Chael Sonnen his way all the way through the lower classes.
And he can do that, but it's gonna turn into a comedy. It's gonna turn it. You're gonna laugh at him. Right now, I like him. I think he should stay where he is. I think he should test the UFC featherweights himself. Clay Guida's down there at this point. Lamas is there. Cub Swanson's there. These are fights that he could take.
Jose Aldo, he looked much bigger than Edgar.
He did, but let's not. You can't say that Frankie Edgar doesn't have a chance against Jose Aldo. Like, no chance at all. He doesn't have a chance to finish him unless he lands one of those bombs that he put on Gray Maynard. But he held his own, I thought.
If that was a 3-round fight, we'd be like, wow, Frankie Edgar's not nearly as good as we thought.
If it was a 3-round fight, right. Which, I'd be interested in seeing championship fights be longer than 5 rounds, but that's neither here nor there.
Let me ask you a question.
Sure.
Is Dominic Cruz faster than Jose Aldo?
No.
I don't think so either. I think Frankie Edgar should fight at bantamweight.
Yeah, it would be. I don't know if there'd be any strikes landed at all if you put Frankie Edgar in with Dominic Cruz. They'd both just be bebopping around. It'd be interesting, but I don't know.
You bring in some Olympic judges for rhythmic dance. I'd like to see Frankie Edgar fight Uriah.
I'd like to see that as well. I'd like to also see Uriah get back on track, but
weird dimple on his chin aside, I like Uriah.
When
the Ultimate Fighter didn't paint him as a genius, but I don't watch fighting for geniuses.
Right, when he was at the top of his game, he was unstoppable. I like him a lot. But if you go down to bantamweight, look at who's there. You've got guys like Mike McDonald, Renan Barão. Do you really think he can take Renan Barão?
It's hard. I mean, I'm so influenced by what Jose Aldo did to him. I'd like to see Edgar versus the German tank. What's his name? Dennis Siever.
Oh, that guy?
I want to see Frankie Edgar fight Dennis Siever.
I think Edgar takes that no problem, honestly.
I think Dennis Siever is top 3 in featherweights right now.
Top 3 and UFC featherweights, yeah. So that's what I mean, though. I think that if Frankie Edgar had come down and instead of fighting the champion right away had gotten some featherweight fights under his belt, you've got Dennis Siever there, you've got Cub Swanson there, you've got Lamas, and now Clay Guida, who apparently gets to go down to featherweight and become one of the top dogs, regardless of what happened in lightweight.
I want to see Aldo fight Guida. Can we do it next?
I'd love that. That's the fight I hope happens if he stays in featherweight.
I'm predicting a Bobby Green-Volkmann fight.
Yes, I'd love that. Awesome. I'm all for Clay Guida losing in any way. In fact, I'd like Clay Guida to head over to Bellator and fight Pat Curran. You
I'd
know
like
what?
to
Give
see
Clay
Clay
Guida
Guida
a title shot.
Let's give Clay Guida John Jones. That way I can absolutely be sure of what's going to happen.
No, but to finalize the answer, I think that Frankie Edgar needs to stay put in the featherweight division.
I do too.
All
Although
the credit to Jose Aldo.
I think he could go down to bantamweight, but let's face it, he's facing Jose Aldo. He's facing Jose fucking Aldo. He did as well as anyone's going to do.
Mm-hmm.
How great is Jose Aldo? Is Jose Aldo, at this point in his career, better than GSP was?
I think you can make a case for him being far more dominant.
He's 26. I didn't realize he was that young. He's 26.
Yeah, oh, he's very young.
Yeah.
So, yeah, he is very dominant in that he will finish fights, and he is a force to fight. And more time, I don't know, more. I guess the question is, who would you rather fight, a young GSP or a young Jose Aldo?
GSP 5 years ago was like 14-2.
I'd rather fight a young George St. Pierre than a young Jose Aldo.
You know, Jose Aldo, at 26 and as dominant as he is, he could have, I think he's got a good chance to overcome Silva as the best ever. I mean, if he finishes his career like at 40-3 or something crazy, he's 22-1 right now
with notable wins under his belt. I mean, a lot of names.
Yes.
But would he get the kind of respect at such a lightweight class?
If he fights like he fights, hell yeah, he's not a decision guy. That leg kick alone is worthy of beating off to.
So where do you think Jose Aldo? Who do you think Aldo fights next? Who would you like to see him fight next?
At the press conference, Dana White announced that he got a text message. And he said, someone has asked for Aldo. And if it's true, if this can happen, this will be a super fight that will be better than Edgar Aldo. And that man was Anthony Pettis. He wants Aldo.
Do you think that's fair for fighters to keep coming down from lightweight and just bucking all the featherweights in line?
I think you didn't hear me. I said
no.
Aldo versus Pettis.
I'm for that, but I also want to see
the other featherweights. Let's get this done.
I want to see the Korean Zombie get a shot.
Please. He has nothing on Pettis.
I'd like to see actually the Korean Zombie fight Edgar next, but I want to see.
Oh, that'd be good. Yeah,
I want to see KZ fight next. I want to see Poirier, be somewhere in the mix. But at this point, it seems like if you're really good at lightweight, just drop down.
Dude, I don't care. I'm all in on Pettis Aldo.
I'm in for Pettis anybody.
Yeah.
I still think Pettis takes Bendo.
I am all in. That would make my day. That would really, if they can get that done this year, and the way Dana looked like, oh my God, he looked so excited about this prospect at the press conference, and quite frankly, this will be the best year in MMA. if we got Aldo, Edgar, Aldo, Pettis, and we get a super fight, or GSP going with Diaz, then Hendricks, then Maia, maybe Silva. Spider fights Jones. Jesus Christ, 2013, I'm retiring from mixed martial arts because that's frankly it. It won't get any better.
If Silva fights John Jones, that will be the best super fight, in my opinion.
And let's face it, if you love mixed martial arts and you love apple pie in America, you want Anderson Silva to win. Don't ask me why that makes sense, but for everything good, noble, and holy, and God bless Burger King, we want Anderson Silva to beat John Jones.
I would love for Anderson Silva to beat John Jones, and he will. I'm telling you, if they fight, Anderson Silva will embarrass John Jones.
Didn't you say John Fitch would finish Maia? I'm just throwing that out there.
Okay, who? Jim Miller, UFC hype train.
I'm saying I don't know what will happen. I just hope Anderson wins. Fight of the night, Aldo Edgar. Knockout of the night. You wanted to say it?
Did you see Bigfoot knock out Alistair Overeem? Oh my God, it was awesome.
And towering over a comatose Alistair Overeem, yelling at him, "Get up, I'm not done with you, keep fighting." In the press conference, he called Alistair Overeem. He said, when Alistair Overeem hits you, he's a lion. But when he gets hit, he becomes a little putty cat.
He's a cat. This was the one time in the night where Herb Dean should have stopped doing his job. Why did he hold him back? He didn't do his job all the way up to then. Why start then?
There was a great image of Bigfoot Silva taking off Alistair's head, and Herb Dean is standing in there with his hands to his chest, flinching like, "Damn!"
Yeah, it was like that Friday,
yeah.
Martin Friday. That's exactly the look Herb Dean had.
Oh, that was good. Herb Dean took the night off. He's normally the best referee in MMA. Tonight, I have other things. I have other shit going on. All right. Any final thoughts on this card, prelims or main?
Did you see? Yes, it was that. I mean, nobody else could have fought. If that was the one fight that they were going to put on their first ever UFC on Fox, that would have blown the fucking doors off.
You're saying that could have been the only fight on pay-per-view, and you would have been happy to pay for it.
I would have been thrilled. I would have been absolutely thrilled.
In fact, we're mailing money to Bigfoot Silva, just extra bonuses.
Oh my goodness! And you know what? It's not even that Antonio Silva did it. It's just that it happened to Overeem. Anybody could have done it.
Who was as cocky, Overeemish as he's ever been in any fight.
Yep. And that's why and you can crucify me for this, but juiced up Overeem put Brock Lesnar out of this sport. I miss Brock. I'm not going to tell you that I'm a fan of Brock, that I love, but I miss him. I think the heavyweight division needs a guy like that.
Brock was a contender. You may not like Brock. He had 2 bouts of diverticulitis. That took something out of him, but he was a perennial contender. He was an elite heavyweight, and we need as many elite heavyweights as we can.
And a guy with Brock said he was scared of Overeem's strength, that it was overpowering, and he never faced anything like that. It's because he was on the juice, and that cheating took a Brock Lesnar out of the sport, and that bums me out, because we could be talking right now about potential rematch with Cain Velasquez, or God forbid, Brock Lesnar versus JDS. That would just, I think, be murder. But that's interesting though. So
let's embrace this tangent for a second. Alistair Overeem strung together 12 straight fights. A huge Alistair Overeem. Before that, he was a good but not great fighter, losing a lot of fights to guys much smaller than him. Mm-hmm. Before he got on that win streak, he was 25-11. Losses to Shogun, Arona, Little Nog, Karatanov, Verdum, Liddell, Bobby Hoffman. I mean, is Alistair Overeem, can we say he is a creation of steroids? Is that what has made the Reem so great? Because he just had freakish, sick power?
I think that's what I've been saying all along. Again, go back to that timeline. Sure, anybody can put 20 pounds of muscle on in a year if he really sticks to it. No, not year after year.
From the time he was starting MMA to now, well, not to now, before he got busted after Brock Lesnar, he put on 80 pounds of muscle. I mean, that's what it looks like. From a 205er to a guy that cuts down to 265, 50 pounds of muscle easy.
It's the same as rookie Barry Bonds.
Lean, shredded muscle at that.
Right. To Barry Bonds breaking the home run record. This is a guy who who is twice of what he used to be. And yeah, you go back over his wins. You could call him a can crusher, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, look at this: Paul Buntello, Lee Tai-Hun, Mark Hunt, Adrada Krokop, Gary Goodrich, Tony Sylvester, James Thompson, the king of cans, Kazuyuki Fujita, Brett Rogers, rapist can, Todd Duffy, hello, a terrible fight to Fabricio Verdum, which I thought he lost, and then a handicapped, nearly retired Brock Lesnar. That's not, I mean, Fedor looks like he was fighting Anderson Silva every fight compared to that record.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can say all you want about Fedor, but again, it comes down to, for me, it happened going on over a year ago, but he put Brock Lesnar out of the sport due to PEDs, and I think that's a shame. I think, love or hate Brock, but he held his own. He was where he was because of what he was able to do in such a short amount of time. So.
I wrote a very long column on Brock about what I thought his fame did to his career in MMA. Overeem's signature wins are over Vitor Belfort. He has 2 of them. And that was when Vitor wasn't Vitor. His sister got kidnapped and murdered. He was up and down, probably just getting off of steroids himself. Those are really Overeem's only quality wins. Obviously, he fought and beat Vovchanchyn, Igor, but Igor is a kickboxer, and Alistair submitted him. Mm-hmm. That's really it. I mean, I guess you could say... Well, he submitted Mark Hunt, too. Whoop-de-doo. I think Alistair is hype. After this fight, I think he's all hype and chemical.
And that is why I want to see a non-juiced Overeem fight Nandor. I honestly believe Nandor's got... If he stands and bangs with him, Nandor's got a shot.
Can you imagine what Cain Velasquez would have done to Overeem?
Oh, God! That would have been better.
I'm embarrassed at myself for getting caught up in the hype train.
No, I mean, who didn't, though? Honestly, going into that, who didn't think...
Yeah.
Now we know. Now we know what to expect.
Yeah, and like I said, by the end of 2014, Alistair Overeem will look like Cody McKenzie. On that note, let's sign off. Final thoughts, Mitchell?
Did you see that knockout? It was awesome.
Yes, it was. I am Lucky Rob. On behalf of Mitchell Stucky, see you next time. Say goodbye to the people, Mitchell.
Okay, like I'm your dog. Goodbye, people.
All right, sit down, beg, roll over. Farewell.